Alright, so I wanted LED lights for my Daytona. This is basically the nicest bulb you can get that's not an LED that doesn't cost $200. Normal LED bulbs from other manufacturers, $200. Chinese eBay garbage ones that look really nice and work pretty well, $60. To get this in there, has to go in this. Does not work. Ends up with that. Does not work. So I had to end up doing all this to figure out that this would be the nicest in this design. So using this bracket with this light, we can install the Daytona, which I'll show you real quick. All right, so here's the materials you're gonna need. You're gonna need your new, these are the Z Off-Road LED lights, your original housing that would probably be on your old bulb, and then your 3D printed part, your adjustment screws, your 4 screws that are going to go in these 4 holes here, a T15 bit, a Phillips bit. I'm gonna use an impact driver, but you can also do this with a screwdriver. And if you plan on using the spring that actually holds tension on this, I've seen that sometimes it doesn't need it, sometimes it does. You're gonna need to pick pull the spring down and load it into spot. So the first thing you're gonna do is you're gonna drill this hole out with a bit that's about the same thickness as your spring. The springs might be different, so I'm gonna go ahead and drill that hole. All right, so this is a 7/64 bit, but if you don't have that, you can also use an 1/8 inch bit. And so there's 2 screw holes. There's this one here and here. Those ones, they're equal distance from each other. Those are the ones that you're going to put the other screws in. This one furthest to the corner is the alignment hole for the spring. And all set. All right, from here, you're gonna want to take this original bracket off of your old light. Now, I'm not really gonna tell you exactly how to do it because the way I did it probably isn't proper, but what I did, because it's slightly too big on the new bulb, you're gonna want to shove it on the front of it and press down on the corners. One of the 4 corners is going to wanna stick up. I used a C-clamp to just clamp it and then go the opposite side and kept turning it down until it got completely flush with the front. And then from there, we can screw it onto the bracket. So I'll show you that now. All right, so you want to set the bracket on the back side, the 3D printed bracket on the back side of this bracket. And you'll see when you print it, there'll actually be these little alignment holes. They're not perfectly circular. They're just how they came out of the design, and I left them. They're good pilot holes for this group's bit. So you can use a screwdriver on this. I'm going to use the driver, like I said, and this is going to be a Phillips bit for the Phillips screw heads. And you'll notice that on the bottom, these are actually further spaced apart from the top. So if you put this upside down, I guess you're an idiot. Just make sure you're not putting it on backwards. Make sure the alignment hole has a space towards the front, and then on the left and right top side.
Smooth it on the back.
All right, and then from here, you can go ahead and start, I'd say loosely screw them in. Just make sure the screws in the hole are straight. All right, and then from here, we'll go ahead and snug up each one of the screws. And mind you, it's plastic, so don't go crazy with it. Just make it snug. And I like to do the left side first or the right side first. Don't try to go catty corner because it might try to flex the entire plastic piece and then it'll be bound up.
It was good.
And then from here, you're going to want to take your 2 alignment screws. And this is going to be a little tough depending on which side and how accurate your printer is. So if you have a very inaccurate printer, you're going to have to shove pretty hard on these, but they're pretty much a tension fit. They won't want to go in right away, so you can sit here and work back and forth on them until they go into their spot. All right, once you got your screws in, you'll come over to your headlight bucket. and you'll want to plug the adapter in that came with the lights. Now on mine, the flat side had the ground on it, and below the ground was the red wire, and the yellow wire goes on the far left side, and it'll be mirrored on the other side. I would make sure you double check when you're doing this. Take a voltometer, make sure you know where ground is, and one of these is high beam and one is low beam. Just make sure when you're doing that they're not backwards. And from there, go ahead and plug your light in. And then shimmy it into your headlight bucket. This is always the funnest part. Main problem is, if your vanity, I guess you'll call it, isn't broken, it doesn't want to come out, and it's very hard to adjust this stuff in here. So you just line up your screws, your adjustment screws into their holes. And that's all that needs lined up. And there we go. So those are all lined up now. So from here, you can take a T15 bit and screw these in until it gets to the right point. All right.
Once it's in, you fix that.
No, we're not done with that yet.
Oh, the spring.
Yeah.
Ah, see guys? The spring. Now let's watch him shimmy the spring
All right.
into the tiny hole.
So this is actually going to be, it might depend on your application, because I've noticed on this side over here when I installed it, it didn't need the spring, and over here it did need the spring. I don't have to, if it has to do with the print quality or just the amount of alignment or the flex or how well your printer works. I don't know. It looks like this one, based on the way it's pointed right now with these almost all the way in, it looks like it's going to need the spring, and this will be the hardest part. You're going to need a little pick with a curve on it, because you're going to have to reach in behind the plastic piece. You can hear me hitting the spring back there. You have to pull it around and up into that hole, and that'll pull tension against the whole thing. And so when you align it, it'll want to pull against that way. So as you pull these in and out, it's all based on this bottom right axis. So I'm gonna pull this in real quick. It's probably gonna take me like 2 minutes. And there is a strong possibility that if you do this wrong and like pull too hard, you might break off this bottom right corner, depending on your print quality and the material you use. This is tough PLA, and it seems to not care, but if you're using PETG or something more flexible, you're probably going to snap it off and break it. So you might not even need the spring. Where are you, spring? Alright, I got the spring set against the plastic housing, and I pulled it in with this little loop at the bottom. And we're going to take the top one here and just pull it right in the spot like that. So now the whole headlight has tension being pulled on it, and from here you can either go ahead and put this on, or you can try to align the headlight without this on it. Make sure it's going to work for you, because this already has 4 screws you have to bolt into it. So I'm going to go ahead and get this up in here looking all pretty, run the adjustment screws to kind of get it aligned right, and then show you guys the final result. Alright, and here's the finished result. You can see it's pretty stable. I mean, I wouldn't be worried about this going, I'm pressing on some good force to even get it to move at all. And then I would recommend using a different material for the final piece. The one I showed you and demonstrated with, that is a tough PLA, and frankly it's not a very good version of it. It's actually the stuff from Micro Center. You can get them for as low as $8 for a kilogram of stuff, because that's that cheap. This is what I'm going to finally go with. This is a ASA, so it's an ABS type of plastic. This will hold up to heat a lot better. I'd be worried about the tough PLA warping this headlight bucket, and I'll put pictures on this. This headlight with no airflow in an 80-degree ambient room gets 145 degrees Fahrenheit with the high beam on. And that's without being in here with an engine running with a radiator about right here. So worst case scenario, it's probably going to melt and move your headlight out of adjustment. I don't think it's going to fall out by any means, but it will warp.
And here's what it looks like when it's fully installed. Check out the description to find the download links on Thingiverse and Tinkercad. Feel free to edit the design in any way you see fit. I'm licensing this under the Attribution Share Alike 3.0 license, which says you are allowed to edit, modify, remix, and even sell this design as long as you have me listed as the original designer. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe.